Brothers, happy Founders Day! Episode 1 is finally here, and we couldn't be more excited to share it with you. But let's first tell you a little bit about who we are.
This alumni active-led podcast is created by gentlemen for gentlemen to form and foster lasting relationships between undergraduates and alumni all across the country. In doing so, we hope to present unique and powerful stories, ones that can impact and resonate with brothers in any and all walks of life, even after the sands of time have flown past their 4 years at their own alpha.
Wherever you are in your own journey, this can reach you there. We hope that you enjoy everything that this podcast has to offer. And without further ado,
Welcome to the Gentleman's Journey.
Hello everyone and welcome to the first episode of the Gentleman's Journey. We're here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota at the national headquarters of First Premier Bank, and we are here with our first guest. Very excited to have him, brother Denny Sanford, Alpha Nu class of 58 grad. Denny, how are you doing today?
Wonderful, thank you, and I appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah, we're so glad to have you with us. This has been something we've been trying to develop for a long time, and just now that it's here, we couldn't be more excited, and just how we're kicking it off, and just being here, the environment, getting to see your business, and understand what's going on here, and getting to hear your story in these next half hour to an hour. It's going to be fantastic. We're glad to do it, and again, we thank you so much for being with us. So first and foremost, tell me just about basically how you end up here today. As Denny Sanford, 86 years old, you establish your business, you get here. What would you say were your three biggest things that led you to where you are today? It could be hard work, success, anything like that.
Good question. Mm-hmm. So I would start out by saying my dad was a major influence on my life. I've worked full-time since I was 9 years old. And I'm continuing to work at 85, by the way, not 86, but that's okay.
85, excuse me.
Well, that works. So that was a big influence on me. And I worked, as I say, since I was 9 years old. But I was not a very good student. So I barely got out of high school. I was having problems with the university. My sophomore year at the University of Minnesota, I pledged Kaisei. And it was truly one of the most significant things in my life, because all of a sudden I had some mentors in older alums, and as well as the actives at that point in time. They kept reminding Denny, who didn't catch on right away, that the lodge was going to lose its status at the university if we didn't maintain a good grade point average. So that was significant. And got me through, not with the best of grades, but one extra quarter at the University of Minnesota. So I graduated in 58, 4 years and 1 quarter late, but we got through, and it was a great experience. Kaisei just meant so much to me. This is all about gentleman consideration, and it made me a better gentleman. I had some troubles right out of high school and got over those. And it truly made me a gentleman, and I thank Kaisei to this day for doing that, and that's why I contributed what I contributed to Kaisei. So it was a great experience. My first job out of college was with the Armstrong Cork Company, linoleum, tile, and that type of thing for floors, and stayed with them just for 1 year after a training course. And left on my own, became a manufacturer's rep, architectural products, getting architects to specify the products that I was representing, and that became a very successful company. I took it public in 1972 at $5 a share, sold it in '82 for $35 a share. So that worked out pretty well. Put some cash in my pocket, and a buddy of mine in Minneapolis, very dear friend, came to me and said, "Look, I've got a serious problem. It's called a wife." No one liked this gal, and so he said, "Lend me some money, and I want you to buy my bank out in South Dakota." I said, "Why do I want a bank? And I'm not that crazy about banks in the first place." He said, "I'll buy it back from you in 2 years. I'll give you a put. You can put it back to me in 2 years. And so I bought this bank. It was a very small bank, $87 million bank. Now it's well over $2 billion. And it worked out fine. I decided to keep the bank and put it into a credit card business. Very unusual business. And we have 3.5 million credit card holders nationally now with the First Premier bank card. And it's very great business. I've got the right people running it, and it makes a lot of money. So I love sharing that money. I do a lot in philanthropy. Probably the biggest part of my life is now devoted to philanthropy. I've given away already well over $2 billion. And Kaisei is a recipient of part of that for good reason, for good causes. So we created a very, very unusual credit card organization. Sioux Falls is one of the biggest credit card companies or cities in the country. We've got Citibank located here, Wells Fargo's here, for their national credit card operations. And I hired one of the top people from Citibank, a young guy, but he put the whole deal together. He's now been with me 30 years. And our typical employee lasts here about 25, 30 years, and we take very good care of them. They take very good care of me. So as witnessed by my philanthropy. So it's been a great experience all the way along.
You touched a lot on how those early impacts in Kaisei like really affected you and really kind of set your life on course to be where you are today. I mean, I think it's so important when you talk about in the pursuit those 7 core values and just learning how to be a gentleman from the first day you're a potential new member all the way past till we graduate to the end of our lives. This is a lifely commitment we talk about.
Good.
And just going on back to that early undergrad experience, what would you say was a fond memory or experience of yours that you kind of look back to now as beneficial, helpful, just a kind of a reference point almost?
Okay, well, getting out of high school, before university, before Kaisei, I got into some difficulties with the law, and one of the first things that impressed me about Kaisei was, you are a gentleman, otherwise you're out. Plain and simple. That's a ground rule, and that's the best thing any organization can have, is structure yourself properly for the future. And they did a great job of it. I had a tough older brother who was at that time a veteran, back in school, but the lodge was outstanding. It was a great experience for me to get with a more select gentlemanly group at the university, and Kaisei was it. So I interviewed, or I went through Pledge Week and so on and so forth with different organizations, but Kaisei stood out as the highest quality by far and away of any of the clubs that I visited. So I was happy to join there. One of my buddies from high school was a member, and he got me in trained and involved in the organization, and it was absolutely a great experience. But to me, it proved out the whole idea of higher quality life, better education, work harder, and I did, and it turned out. Now I've got the good fortune of putting a lot of those characteristics to work in my own businesses, and about 2,000 employees nationwide, and it works out very well.
Excellent. I think a question that's really going to a commonality that we're going to have in a lot of these potential interviews and what's coming after this, and something you touched on is, why did you decide to rush a fraternity in general, and more specifically, like you touched on, what brought you to Kaisei? You mentioned you have these special elements, and that these guys are striving to be the highest quality of gentlemen. Did you notice that immediately, and during that rush week?
During rush week, they were gentlemen. They were truly interested in me, and individually, and I really felt that they could do more for me in that organization than most organizations do. Drinking clubs and sports clubs and so on and so forth. A couple of fraternities were strictly sports, figures from the university and the like, but others were, they won all the beer contests. So I didn't need that. I needed to get serious about my life at that point in time, as my misfortune and misdeeds put me into jail. I said, I got to develop a new life, and Kaisei really provided that for me, and it was just a quality experience all the way around. Fabulous. As I say, one of my dear friends from high school was the one that intrigued me, and there was a Kaisei, got me to pledge there, and I've never regretted it for a minute. So, a good experience.
That's awesome. Like we talked about, it's a brotherhood that's meant to be set apart, and I think your story, you living through that, really shows what it can do. From what you're describing, it really sounds like your college and undergrad experience was pivotal in your life, and I think that's so important. So that leads me into my next question: what would you you said you're 85. What would you, in today's age, tell your college self as a piece of advice? Obviously, with that being pivotal, what's a piece of advice you'd give your college self?
For actives?
Yeah, for actives, it can be from a business standpoint. Just how you were living in general. Just a piece of advice in any walk of life that you would have given your college self.
Yeah, clearly the experience was so valuable to me. Coming away with much more of a gentlemanly demeanor, together with the fact that I'm still very, very involved with the alumni, my age group particularly. And I visit the lodge every fall and take in the football games, so on and so forth. But the entire experience was positive. There was nothing ever negative about the experience with Kaisei.
Yeah, going back into the 7 core values, as you know, one of them is charity, and you touched on your philanthropies and what you've gotten into. What first brought your attention to that, and what has continued to really make that a passion of yours as time has gone on in your career and just your lifetime?
Well, very basically, I'm 85 years old. I'm still working. I'm not working for any value to myself. I'm working for value to the world. And that's what I concentrate on, and it's working very well for me. Not only in the state of South Dakota, but nationally, I'm very, very involved with children's causes, particularly health issues and the like, and health organizations as well. Here in Sioux Falls, we've got an organization called Sanford Health. We have 50,000 employees. It's a private nonprofit organization, 35 hospitals, 250 clinics, and 200 assisted living locations nationwide. So all under my name, and I'm very happy to continue supporting it.
Yeah, I mean, you really are, touching on, these positive things that we're bringing just from the undergrad life on, and how, this journey that we talk about, I mean, not to make a pun and talk about the name, but this journey is a lifetime one. It's not just one that ends after our 4 years. We're still carrying on those values all the way through. And it sounds like, just listening to you, tell your story, you've clearly had a great impact on so many people, even beyond this community. So who would you say has impacted your life the most personally?
I would say my father. And some of my older brothers, like my big brother at Kaisei. I mean, he was on my butt all the time, and rightly so. I was not a natural student by any means. I barely graduated, but I did graduate, and he got me to graduate. It was a great influence on me that I would not have gotten. I don't think I would have gotten through another year of college without the experience and all the values that Kaisei taught me.
I think, a lot of times people are, like we touched on, people are assuming this is just a way we act in college, that it's not a way of life. And I think, as you touched on with other fraternities, it's about the beer drinking, or it's about being involved, or this or that, or I mean, who can make this cool and appealing 4 years? And I think that what sets us apart is, like I said, our lifelong commitment. So after really discussing your career, your philanthropies, and obviously you're a father too, what would you say in your own words, is your greatest single accomplishment, would you say?
The single greatest accomplishment, I believe, totally is my philanthropy.
Your philanthropy?
Yeah. You have to work for a purpose, other than when you get past support of yourself and your family and so on and so forth. I really believe the changes that I've been able to make in different organizations is really my biggest accomplishment. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you discussed, early on how, you had some trouble, at home with the law growing up. Would you say, if you could go back and change something from your early life or just, anything before you come to Kaisei, what do you think that would be?
I think I'd be looking for a mentor earlier on. I never really had one. I had an older brother that was quite the opposite, and that didn't work out very well. So I think I would have depended upon good people a lot earlier than I did.
I think, having, like you talked about your big brother, and, obviously anyone who's, been a brother with us has a big brother in their own alpha. I think people really underestimate how important those are for, setting you straight. You said, without your big brother, you don't think you're able to get through that last year of college. Mine pushes me the same way, texts me all the time just to be better every single day. And I feel like, having mentors in our own life, whether they're blood or not, is so important.
No question. No question.
Yeah.
And Kaisei can offer that.
Yes,
and I would throw that challenge out to whoever sees this video or the like. But look, if you can't do it yourself, look for somebody that can do it for you. Plain and simple.
So, how would you're a man, obviously, of many successes, many talents. How would you personally define hard work? We talked about that a little bit in the beginning, and I would say it's kind of a subjective definition. How would you describe hard work? Like, what's hard work to Brother Denny Sanford?
I believe hard work is the motivation that you have to do good, not just for yourself, but for your family. I have my oldest son is a Kaisei, and it's rubbed off on him dramatically. And Kaisei was a great experience for him as well. So, but overall, I think just a willingness to work hard for your accomplishments, plain and simple. And Kaisei was a big part of that for me.
I think a lot of people, what resonates with our brothers and with a lot of people going just through various walks of life is that we all have, a single commonality. We have setbacks, we have failures. And I think, you as a very, successful and talented man know that the pathway to that is anything but linear and is not always straight up and down. Would you say in your life you experienced a minor or major setback that really kind of tested, your will and your dedication not only to this business, but just to your ideals and your beliefs?
No question about it. And Kaisei was such a significant part of that all the way through. It was truly one of the greatest experiences of my life. And I like to see the organization grow, continue on, gain strength. I'd throw out a challenge to anyone that listens to that: keep making those lodges significant. Not just the brotherhood, not just the drinking party, so on and so forth, but make the lodges significant. So, because I look back, the University of Minnesota has one of the best lodges in the country, but I've been in several of them around the country, and just the physical presence of those organizations in the organization in general is far superior to any other fraternity system that I've seen.
How would you describe your personal work in the leadership style? It doesn't have to be strictly for First Premier. You can talk about your philanthropies. Everyone kind of has a kind of niche, I would say, a kind of certain idea of how they like to work, how they like to conduct business. Would you say there's a certain way you like to do the business that you've done your whole career?
Well, I think Kaisei taught me this in part. Looking for a higher value, more what I can do for not only myself, but for my family and for my fraternity brothers as well. So I've helped several of them out along the way, and it's worked out well.
I think your story it reminds us how, our past doesn't define us. You can experience a multitude of issues. You can come from any type of background, and you can still make those pivotal transitions, and you can make those strives towards being that gentleman that you described. And I think hearing that through the story, I think it'll resonate, especially with a lot of younger people, because as much as we'd like to think, we work our best to instill those values, but the truth is, there's people everywhere that have gone through different types of struggles, ones that not everyone can understand, and if they have that opportunity in their respective alphas to make a turnaround just like you did, that's not to say that they follow the exact same pathway after the undergrad experience, but they're still able to learn what's at the heart of everything we do, and I think that's so important.
Yeah.
Moving into some softer questions, though, one that we really got requested was, what would you say are your personal favorite or influential movies of your lifetime, films?
Personal experience with it?
What would you say are the most influential movies of your lifetime? What's something you recommend to an undergrad, like a movie they need to watch, or perhaps a film? It can even be a book if you'd like that also.
I don't think there's one in particular that stands out.
Maybe the Kaisei story, right? You got to read that cover to cover.
Oh, no question about
Yeah.
it. No question.
No, I definitely think going through The Pursuit, being able to go through all those, every major section of the Kaisei story was, it was tiring, it was long, but it was definitely a good way to really understand, what we do here, our history.
No question.
All the above there. So obviously that's one we got to recommend to every Kaisei. So, do you have a favorite particular memory at Alpha Nu? Something shared perhaps with a big brother, or an active there that you just really enjoyed and that you kind of remember, a fond, impactful memory, something like that?
Well, several members are still very, very close friends of mine. Pete Lee in particular, Minnesota grad, is a neighbor in Arizona, and good people. So across the board, we still get together on occasion, particularly around homecoming. But it's just a great organization to belong to.
No, that's excellent. I know one thing everyone talks about is how when they've left, they've made their mark and go on. They always hang on to that pledge class. So they hang on to these brothers, and it's really nice to hear that you've maintained that relationship with many of your brothers over the years. I think it's so important. I remember the first thing that I got told when I kind of joined and when I became a potential new member, and then eventually a pledge. They were telling me these guys in your class are the ones that are going to stand at your wedding. These are the guys that are going to stand with you in the biggest moments of your life.
No question.
And having that with me, it's not only comforting, it's really cool to see that these are not just 4-year friends, these are lifelong friends.
I'm 85 years old, and we're putting a group together. I think it's the 15th of June or something like that.
Oh, excellent.
And 5th of June. And we'll have a dozen of my contemporaries from Kaisei in that meeting, and I'll share our stories and
reminisce.
Yeah, exactly.
That's excellent.
The brotherhood is just unbelievable.
I think so too. If I ever am thinking of a word to describe it, I would say blessed. It's that simple. A lot of people don't, like I said, understand the multitude of what we find there and what we will find in that undergrad experience and beyond. But I would say it's so important. And I've never ever doubted that since I've joined. So again, here's another personal one. What would you say is your biggest fear?
Good question. I would say bad health. I'm 85 years old. I've got good health, but I'm getting to that point where I'm not going to be around very very long, and so my biggest fear is not being around for my family, my friends, and Kaisei and the like. That's my only fear. But I don't go to sleep with it every night.
I think a lot of people do feel like mortality, realizing that we're not invincible and that we really do have to do our best to make that impact here. I mean, that's what you've done through your philanthropies, that's what you've done through your business. You have tens of thousands of people employed, people getting help, especially, your children's philanthropy. Right. I mean, there's kids who are, early in their lives that like seriously, need help, need the support. And that's what your philanthropy is able to give them. You're able to alleviate some of that fear, some of that worry, financial stress, any of the above. So that's really, when you think about it, why you do it. Would you say everything you do? So what would you say is your biggest strength you feel like you've carried over, all these years?
Biggest strength, I think, is just my work ethics, by far and away. I run great organizations. I have great people in them, and they. If I can teach someone good habits, I would say it's going to be in the work environment, particularly. But it can pay off in a big way, as it did for me.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people really neglect work ethic these days, and people really don't realize how important it is for getting you where you are. And so I think that's definitely a really, really great strength to have. I feel oftentimes a lot of people, successful or not, often find that their greatest strength is also simultaneously their greatest weakness. Sometimes you want to strive to do something, work really hard to make something happen, and you're really well intentioned, and sometimes it just that falls through. And like I said, we talked about how setbacks are simply a part of life. And it's about how we respond to those setbacks, whether it's in business or just in life, And getting into life, as we get closer to the end of the questions here, getting into life, you're a father, you have two children. Tell me about what has fatherhood taught you? We have a lot of alumni, maybe some older actives that are about to be dads, and it's definitely, I would say, probably one of the greatest challenges of your life is learning how to be a parent. So tell me about what that's been like for you with your two children.
It was a great experience being a parent, raising two of my own sons, raising my half-brother who lost our mother when he was 16, no parents. So I raised him, and he turned out absolutely great, and the boys are great. So I think that's a big accomplishment in my life.
What would you say, value-wise, or just like lessons, like what would you say fatherhood really taught you though? Like what did you have to pick up along the way? Because obviously most parents will tell you learn as you go. Yeah. What were some things you learned in raising your two boys and your half brother? Like what were some of those values?
The one that came hardest was patience. It's not in my bailiwick of strength at all. So I think patience, primarily with my boys, but also with employees. Just give them an opportunity to move forward and support them as much as possible.
I work with kids myself, back in Louisville, so I haven't gotten I haven't crossed that full threshold yet, but I mean, they will wear your patience thin. They will push buttons you didn't even know you had, but I think it's just such an important part about, we talk about how, in Kaisei we're not raising, but we're helping develop gentlemen, and we're they're leaving that 4-year experience. Is that I think it's similar to almost being a father, being that part of that big structure in the household, raising your sons or your daughters to be those quality people, just like we would talk about in our fraternal life.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah, no, I would say that's super important. Yeah, so moving away from the questions, just highlighting important pieces. It seems that people don't even realize at points how important and how much you can get out of 4 years of Kaisei. One thing I remember, our number one, telling us when we first got in, his name's Cameron Elder. He told us that this is what you make out of it. Whatever you put in, you will get out, and you don't even understand the limits of, if there are any, of the things that you can do here, the people you can, the person you can become, just like the connections you can make, whether it's friendships, business. I mean, it sounds like you just get everything out of that 4-year experience.
It's much more than just a social life.
Absolutely.
Much more than social life only. So look at the values that can come forth from it. And that's what Kaisei is all about. That's what Sam and his team have to continue reminding everyone, every chapter, every alpha, nationwide. Look, there's a purpose for us in this world, and make it work.
Yeah, no, like I said, I think, going back to the pursuit and, the Kaisei story and learning all those foundational lessons, I think it's so important for us to be anchored by those values. Because, without that, getting into all that, reading, kind of internalizing it, where do you think we end up? I think it is so important to just, remember why we're all here, how we came to be here, and what we're going to do. Like you said, it couldn't be less, I would say, of a social experience. You can get some of those aspects out of it, but it's just a fraction of what everything it can actually bring you.
For sure.
And I think your life is, a testament to that, if anything. And I really do hope it's able, which I'm sure it will, is just able to encourage other people who are in similar situations, who are, working on developing themselves into that quality gentleman that we just, described. And hopefully we can take this in future shows and really unpack, that what we're doing here, it's till the very end. We're here to live out everything we talk about, and it is not a 4-year commitment. It's way beyond that. Denny, I want to thank you for being here with us today. Like I said, despite what you may or may not think, you've done fantastic to really show us what we're looking to be and who we're looking to become, and obviously that we're trying to remain entrenched in these values. And I think it's a perfect way. There's no better way, in fact, to start off what this has been. So thank you so much for being with us today. Like I said, we're in the headquarters of Premier Bank in Sioux Falls. Anything you'd like to say, to the undergrad or anything?
First off, you've done a great job.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're a good wordsmith right off the bat, but I hope this experience, learning from the two of us via this video, is going to help a lot of people along the way.
I think so too.
The value systems are so important. I have to add to that. Most important things are trust and respect in any sort of a relationship. And if you can learn that, and Kaisei can help teach that. Okay, be respectful and be trustful. Yeah.
I think I think just staying anchored to all that is so important, and I think, who better to tell that than you, brother Denny Sanford? Yeah. Like I said, class of Alpha Nu 58. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for having us out. It's, like I said, it's gorgeous here, and we really, not only enjoyed this conversation, but what's to come after this. A big reason we start this podcast is to, again, to reiterate, is to help make these connections with our alumni, to hear all these amazing, important stories, and tell them to our community, tell them to our world. All of our brothers, from coast to coast, even those living internationally now. So I think, sitting here and being able to talk about all this stuff, as two gentlemen, I think it's going to do wonders for people. And I'm really looking forward to seeing where it goes.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you all for joining us. We will be on social media. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter to talk about our next guest, our next show date, pretty much anything above that. So you guys have a great day, a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next time.
Very good.